So I'm going to jump into a quick demo. So I've got three scenarios. Hopefully I can power through them and show them all to you because I think they're all pretty cool. So we've got a customer scenario, an agent scenario, and a content creator scenario. So the first one here, to set the scene, I'm going to take the persona of our customer, Lee. He's a new banking customer. He's signed up for a new credit card. He's just received the card in the mail, and he was able to activate the card. He's ready to start using it, ready to start spending. But he realizes that the card's rewards program wasn't explained to him particularly well, and so he wants to know how he earns points, right? So, all right, I'm going to jump over into my live demo. So this is a quick look at the default public view of the CXOne Expert solution. Now, there's a number of ways that a consumer might come across knowledge maintained within CXOne Expert. They might come in and land directly on an article, and that might be through Google or perhaps direct links from a homepage or email marketing and that sort of thing. But once the consumer is on Expert, if they need to find content from within the platform, there's a number of ways they can navigate and find the help that they need to resolve their issue. So the first of them is through category navigation. So as you can see on this page, there's a number of high-level categories in relation to the line of business of banking. And so clicking on one of these, such as personal banking, that's going to give me another set of categories to help further refine the type of knowledge that the consumer's searching for. So not too different from pressing buttons, your DTMF buttons in an IVR, or menu options with a virtual agent. And so the analogy I like here is that if we think of like Expert like a library, then each of these categories are like aisles or sections of the library. And as I go deeper, I get into the individual guides, which are more like the books on the shelves. And so within those books, there's content that are the pages that, it's a place where like the specific content related to a topic is stored. And obviously those individual pages are all clumped together. The second method of navigating content in the knowledge base is through the use of the search bar. So Lee's obviously searching for more information about the rewards on his credit card. So he's going to try typing earning rewards. But maybe he's in a bit of a rush, makes a spelling error, but he searches anyway, okay? So Expert still has the ability to pull in relevant results thanks to Expert's intelligent search. Intelligent search accounts for things like fuzzy spelling, synonym search, and even leverages some level of NLP to populate the results. So how those are populated, it's based on machine learning kind of running in the background. And so that's constantly indexing new content as well as utilizing the constant stream of things like user sentiment and user journeys to make sure the top result is best suited for the user that's currently searching with this particular query. On the left, we've got the ability to filter our results. So I can use location, which is kind of referencing the structure of this particular expert site. So those categories that we saw a second ago. Additionally, there's also the ability to include attachments within the content that we're indexing. And so this means that for a brand that who has existing knowledge that perhaps might take the form of a PDF or a document or an image, but hasn't yet completed that transition to web-based knowledge management, consumers can still find that relevant content while the transition's still underway. And the best part, in my opinion, is that Expert actually can also index the content within those PDFs. And so we can obviously surface that content within the search, but we can also utilize reporting in the back end to see if it's a worthwhile endeavor to take those PDFs and create web-based articles. So obviously this would ultimately help to prioritize the transition away from PDF content based on what your brand's consumers are actually searching for, so you can prioritize the workload. So Lee is obviously searching for exactly this. So he's going to open up the article and see if we can find the answer to our question. So right off the bat, we get our first look at what the ability to include rich media. So we can obviously include images. Scroll down a little bit. We've got videos contained within the content as well. Up the top here, we've got a traversable table of contents. So this isn't something that your content creators need to create. It's all generated automatically from the headers that are used within the article. If I choose how to select the right rewards card, I get this cool little functionality here. This is an example of what we call an expert learning path. So this feature gives you the ability to kind of stitch together articles into a learning objective. So if for example, we don't want consumers to jump right into this last article, we want to set up a little bit of knowledge before they get there, then stitching them together in this learning objective is a good way to kind of ensure that we go through the motions, and before we get to the advanced information, we get that baseline information out of the way. So, okay, so Lee's obviously is trying to find the answer to his question. There's a lot of good information here, but doesn't really quite get to the detail of what he's looking for. But as he's about to give up, he notices this note right at the top. It's asking him to log in just to get some more contextual information. So obviously this is the first time I visited the Knowledge Center. So at this point, I'm not logged in. As we can see here, I've got my username and password fields at the top. But I can log in. Perhaps I was provided Knowledge Center access when I signed up for the credit card. So I'm going to sign in as Lee. And now that I've logged in, so I can see this blue section here that wasn't originally visible when I was an anonymous user. So the Knowledge platform has taken note of my role as a user, and it's presented contextual information for my journey. So it's giving me additional information about the rewards program, as well as the rates at which I'm earning my rewards. So obviously that's way more relevant to users who are actual consumers as opposed to maybe non-consumers. And so this capability, in my opinion, is it's best used to present information to different segments of your user base. That makes sense to those users in context. So in this example, we're seeing additional context about how rewards function for an existing customer. And so even down to a page level, we're able to permission out specific sections of content based on that user's rights and access. And so this isn't just like a black and white authenticated versus unauthenticated kind of functionality. We can also scope out to other roles on the platform, such as administrators or partners, content creators, agents. So each of these personas can be assigned groups, which can access different levels of content within the articles. So Lee's able to answer his question, happy with the outcome. He's logged in now, so what he can do is he can scroll down to the bottom and he can rate the article and perhaps leaves a little bit of feedback saying, very helpful, thank you very much. Submit. So before I move on to the next demo, I'll probably just pause for some questions and maybe just have a look at the summary of what we've just seen. Okay, moving on. So the second leg of the demo, like I said, I'll shift gears into the persona of John, the contact center agent. So John's obviously highly skilled, customer service rep with NICE Bank, and he's obviously able to resolve quite quickly and efficiently. So I need to log out of Lee and back into John. Just 1 second. Okay, so yeah, we left off in the previous demo. Lee just finished resolving his own question about his credit card rewards. In this scenario, Lee's going to be in the background. He's going to ask John a few questions about an unidentified charge on his bill. So I'm just going to jump into the Max Agent console. Thankfully, Kati was nice enough to show us most of the functionality within Max. So I won't labor around Max's capability. But once my screen loads, perhaps I will just open it again. There we go. I think my internet's playing up. Can you hear me all right? Ah, cool. Thank you. Okay, so jump back into the Max Agent console, and we'll get a view of John's workspace. So the conversation with Lee has just dropped in on the left-hand side of the digital inbox. So I'll click that open. And the first thing that's going to happen when I engage with that interaction from Lee is I'm going to get a screen pop of my Salesforce instance, which has, once I log in, will have been pre-populated with the case from Lee. Fantastic. Yeah, so if I'll just jump back into Max quickly. We can see there's clearly been a quick back and forth between Lee and a virtual agent just to gather a case number before it was escalated to me as the human agent. So that case is essentially being used to look up through the Salesforce API and then generate a screen pop that's going to show the case in question. So I can see the details of the case, the subject, current status, and a few comments about how I might resolve the query. And so the other thing you can see is that within the Salesforce window, I've got an embedded CXOne Expert. And what's actually happened is this expert window has been pre-populated with a search based on the case subject. So if I scroll down here, you can see the subject of my case was unusual charge on my credit card, and I've had expert load with that pre-populated. So that search can be driven based on any number of fields within Salesforce, but for now it just seemed convenient to just do it based on subject. So John's going to open up that article about unusual charges on the credit card. And so we can obviously review this content now in the context of this particular case. So the other thing to note is in addition to that blue section for customers, there's now also a red section labeled agent note. So this is essentially being used to display internal only information. So in this case, it's a call out that Lee's specific experience has been identified by operational staff. So thankfully, John doesn't have to do too much extra work to find this information. All he really needs to do is execute the process and reverse the service charge, and Lee's going to be on his way. One last thing to show from a Salesforce perspective is the ability to link cases and knowledge. So this link, it gives us two really big benefits. First is that other agents will get the time savings of seeing which specific pieces of knowledge solves a particular case without necessarily having to go searching for it. If we can find a similar case that's been solved, then we can find the knowledge that helped resolve it, right? And the second is the ability to report on how much content is utilized from an agent perspective to resolve those queries. So this kind of insight is super useful to help prioritize your content creators' efforts and ensure that the most useful knowledge is kept up to date and kept relevant. So John's able to resolve this particular query with this content, so we're going to link the case. And if I jump over to the related tab, we can now see within the Salesforce structure that this particular piece of expert content is now linked to this case. Okay, so while John's here, right, he thinks it's probably a good idea maybe to add a note to customers about what the charge will look like within the customer's invoice. But perhaps if we can give a little bit more context to customers, it'll help clarify the issue and it's going to avoid any future conversations coming into the contact center. So as he's looking through, notices a couple of spelling errors as well. So maybe he'll help, be a bit of a good citizen and fix those up. So he's going to go into the edit button within Expert embedded within Salesforce. And so once we open the article to edit, this is a pretty standard WYSIWYG editor. So for anyone that's used any kind of online web page editor before, this shouldn't be too unfamiliar. So yeah, from where your brand's content creation process is concerned, there's really no requirement for web development resourcing to be involved. Anyone with Word experience should be able to put something together. So through our investigation with John, we've identified that the charge will look something like this on the invoice. And while we're here, we'll fix our spelling errors. Scroll back to the top and hit save. So John is just an agent, and NICE Bank maybe has a governance process around publishing of content publicly. Maybe we don't want agents to have direct access to publishing content directly. So at this point, John's only able to revise this content in draft format. In the next scenario, if we get a chance, we'll take a look at what that looks like from a knowledge management perspective and managing those drafts. So yeah, so John's done everything he can within Salesforce. He's going to jump back over to the Max Agent Console, give Lee some good news, and let him know that the charge has been reversed. And we'll send back pending. And so Lee gets his message and replies and just thanks John. And at which point, John can close off his conversation. And Lee might fill out the CSAT survey. So yeah, so that's that pretty much wraps up scenario 2. Obviously, we've covered a couple of things there. The key points being able to project that knowledge into other touch points, highlighting the effectiveness of conditional content for users and agents and content creators alike, and the ability to kind of work on that, edit that content, curate it as you go. Regardless of your skill level. Okay, cool. So for the third scenario, I will complete the knowledge lifecycle and show the power of the reporting and analytics suite that comes with CXOne Expert as standard. So for this demo, we'll be looking through the lens of Mary. She's the knowledge manager for NICE Bank. So we'll jump on over. Once again, we'll log out and log in as an administrator. Okay, so yeah, if you remember during the last demo, our agent John, he updated the article, submitted the updates as a draft. So again, Mary's governance process she's surrounding the publication of knowledge dictates that while agents are allowed to suggest updates, they can't publish them directly without approval from a content creator. So part of Mary's daily process is going to be reviewing those submitted drafts and consider whether the updates are of sufficient quality and accuracy and whether they need editing before they can be published publicly. So for that, Mary can use Draft Manager. So we navigate to Site Tools, then to Dashboard. And so as you can see, there's quite a number of kind of reports and tools that will help managing content as easy as possible. So the first is Draft Manager, which we'll find in Content Tools. And then Draft Manager is over here. So in this list, I've got a couple of example drafts just to kind of show a couple of alternatives, but Mary can also see the draft that was saved by John in his previous interaction with Lee. So she's going to open that up. So Mary's taken directly to the article in question. There's a few options, right? She can peek at the live version. She can publish it directly, delete the draft, or go back to Draft Manager. Obviously, it's probably going to be a little bit of a headache to go back to the live version and try and figure out what changes have been made. So, it's not immediately obvious what has been updated here. So to remedy that, Mary can go to Options and then to Revision History. And so in this list of revisions, we can see kind of the history of everything that's been done, but the top one is the draft that was submitted by John. So Mary can click this kind of 2 pages overlapping icon, and that's going to give us the option to review the 2 revisions side by side. So yeah, so we get a side-by-side comparison of the 2 articles, indicating what's been added, what's been removed, and otherwise edited. So we get a quick and easy overview of the submitted changes without having to kind of jump between tabs and eyeball changes and whatnot. Cool. So Mary's happy. She can see John's corrected a few spelling mistakes. She also agrees it's probably a good idea to add this context to the description so that we can see what the service charge is. Maybe that helps to answer customer inquiries before they result in a call or a chat. Obviously, she's keeping in mind that ultimate goal of meeting customers where their needs events begin, instead of relying on those costly human interactions. So I can go to the top and return back to my draft and click the Publish button and then Publish Draft. And so as soon as I click Publish, that content is updated immediately. It's indexed for search as well. So all users on the site will immediately have access to the most accurate and up-to-date content as soon as it's available. The real benefit, I think, of having added the description of the service charge to the knowledge article is that if someone kind of sees that and now wants to know what the deal is, if they punch that into the search bar in Expert, now this particular article that's perfectly suited to solving that problem will come up in search and it instantly resolve that query. So another key challenge for content management, any knowledge manager will be familiar with, is managing links. So in most cases, dead links can occur for a number of reasons, but key contributors are content that's like moved and or relabeled, and of course deleted content. So if it's disappeared from the platform. So with Expert, content that's moved or relabeled is handled by the platform. So the underlying pointers are updated when changes occur. So all of the links across the website are rewritten. But deleted content is a little bit of a different story. You kind of got two options when it comes to deleted content. Either you block the deletion, so you can't delete it unless there's no links left, or you find a way to kind of make it aware, make content creators aware what links are no longer functioning properly. So Mary can do that using the link manager. So again, I'll go to Site Tools and then to Dashboard. This tool again is in Content Tools and then Link Manager. So Link Manager isn't just for broken links. It reports on links of all shapes and sizes that are present within Expert. So that includes internal and external links, as well as other kinds of links that are probably embedded within the content. Such as email addresses, so like a mail to address, as well as those expert learning paths that we saw in the first scenario. So clicking on this kind of broken filter and then filtering links will bring the link manager down to just the list of the broken internal links that have resulted from deleted internal content. Cool. So we can see like the article that contains the link is an article about a lost or stolen card, and Mary's probably not really sure what's going on here and why this particular link has been broken, why this article about the banking portal is no longer present. So we'll probably need to investigate that. We'll put that on the to-do list. But for now, we can fix this particular problem by coming into the knowledge article, editing it, and we'll just remove this broken link. And we'll probably use our revision history capability to get that content back if we find out why the link is no longer there. So now we've seen, I guess, a couple of the aspects of managing content. And so the second half of this scenario, I just want to kind of go through a little bit of the reporting that we can see about the content that we're working with. So from my perspective, I think there's probably two reports within the suite that I find the most important and insightful when it comes to like not only the feedback that we receive directly from users, but also the indirect feedback about their usage patterns and search behaviors. Worth noting before I kind of get into the nuts and bolts of each of these reports is that if required, each of these reports can be exported into CSV format. So, and also extracted via API. So allowing for, I guess, a little bit more of a detailed view of that underlying data, if that's what you need. So the first cab off the rank is a site report called Community Scoring. So yeah, if you remember back to the first scenario, Lee was trying to find the details of his credit card program, and Lee left feedback after he was able to resolve his query. So the community scoring report is how we get a sense of how our knowledge content has been rated by our users. And obviously this can be an extremely useful tool to identify underperforming content and either flag it for improvement or I guess review by our content managers. So we can use this search box to kind of filter our queries down to a particular subset of our knowledge base. Or we can kind of just look through the list and pick out some items of note. So we can look at the scoring report. It looks like a fair number of articles have been rated, average and high, but it looks like there's one that's really not doing well. It's in the bottom 20% of all ratings within our platform. So I can sort the list of ratings. Excuse me. sort the list of ratings, and we get to the offending article pretty quickly. So if I open that article up, lo and behold, it's the article that we just fixed, right? It's already been flagged to be investigated. I think this obviously makes a lot of sense. It's likely that at some point a user has had this particular problem. They found the article that's relevant to their needs event, but when they tried to use the link, they got an error. So I mean, I would probably rate this article down too if I was in the same position. Okay, so the second of those two reports is the Session Insights report. So yeah, I think early we talked a little bit about the importance of showing value to stakeholders, and obviously it costs time and money to maintain knowledge, no matter your platform or your methodology. So I think it's important to try and at least show some value that investment is returning. And obviously, when it comes to knowledge, it's probably a little bit hard to quantify the value because it's all a little bit wishy-washy. How do we quantify whether a particular piece of knowledge stopped a consumer from interacting with us? So I think the best that you can do is at least get an idea of how users are engaging with your content, what kind of searches they're performing, and the experiences they're having within the platform. So the Session Insights report is especially useful for just that. This one can take a moment or two to load. So this report, the Session Insights report, this gives you a view of the number of users interacting with the platform and essentially a paths through the knowledge that's within. So the report allows you to see the number of sessions when it loads. Apologies. The number of sessions from both new and returning users, the average session length, as well as the average number of pages a user visits for the session. I think probably the best part here is that you can also filter the report based on your user type. So obviously we've got many different personas coming through. And so if we can filter the usage patterns for our agents, our qualified members, as well as our community contributors or anonymous users, we get a little bit more focused on the session insights around the user segment that's generating the most value, which is obviously the consumers. So yeah, scrolling down a little bit, we get a look at the sessions over time, as well as the graph of the entry and exit points in the user session, ranked and over time down the bottom there. And so the very last thing I want to show you is scheduled reports. So, what if Mary wants this insight, but she doesn't want us to log into the platform every day, or even better, she wants to keep stakeholders informed and involved, but doesn't want to have to manually send extracts on a daily basis. So this is pretty simple. We can just click the three dots in the top right-hand corner of the screen, hit schedule delivery, and all we need to do is choose our time frame, destination, and the format that we want it sent in, and that report will be packaged up and sent on a repeating basis. So yeah, so that essentially that's it for me. That brings me to the end of our demo with Mary. Any questions about those reports and content tools?